Hello, my name is Cyclones Oz, and today we're going to be tracking those storms that have since moved out of southeastern Queensland, but as you can see, are now starting to fire across northern Queensland. And we've also got a small chance of a tropical cyclone developing in the Coral Sea, and we'll also take a look at a developing tropical cyclone in the southwest Indian Ocean later on in the video. So quite a bit to go through regarding the tropics in this forecast update, so make sure you stick around to the end to get a full detailed outlook of the weather around the nation. If you are brand new here, please do consider subscribing. We're really close to 10,000, and any piece of support really does mean a lot to me. So thank you so much for watching, and let's get on with it. So you can see a lot of thunderstorm activity firing up across northern Queensland. The remnants of ex-tropical cyclone Kirrily are located north of Mount Isa, and they've still got a little bit of a spin to them. And in the recent hours, they've fired a tremendous amount of thunderstorm convection or thunderstorm activity around the Mornington Island, the Gulf of Carpentaria coastline sort of area. Now, what you might be able to notice through here, if I switched over to a different band of imagery, there's a lot of this wispy cloud moving up towards the north of the system. There's been a lot of talk about if this system's chances of developing in the Gulf of Carpentaria into another tropical cyclone, but I don't think that that's any chance at all. Now, what this wispy cloud means is that there is a high amount of wind shear in the area. You can see this wispy cloud moving towards Groote Island and then into the Northern Territory as well, and that's to the north of where Kirrily is right now. Now, wind shear is very good for thunderstorm activity and strong thunderstorm activity as well. You need a high wind shear environment to spin up some very strong thunderstorms. However, it's very bad for tropical cyclones, which need organized thunderstorm activity, and the remnants of Kirrily are not going to get that with the environment that she is in right now. She will, however, if we take a look at the forecast winds, spend a little bit of time over water. You can see the low pressure system here due north of Mount Isa, about 100 kilometers out of the town site. And by around tomorrow morning, as we enter February, it does move over into the Gulf of Carpentaria very briefly and spends about a day or so, maybe up to 36 hours, just offshore from the Gulf of Carpentaria. The eastern relief calls for it to actually become a tropical cyclone. However, I don't think that that's fully supported with other forecast models. There is a small chance that it does actually become a tropical cyclone. The Access model is very bullish, but again, the Bureau of Meteorology's forecast model hasn't been the hottest forecast model to use this cyclone season so far. We saw how much it busted out with Cyclone Kirrily, so I wouldn't be following the Access model here, but you can see there is still this chance that this becomes a tropical cyclone around Burketon or Corumba as it moves towards the Queensland coastline after spending about a day or so offshore. But once it moves onshore again, taking a look at the ICONS forecast right now, it will weaken very rapidly as it moves south. But it will get a lot more energy from the Gulf of Carpentaria, which means thunderstorm activity will be exaggerated across northern Queensland, and we'll be seeing a lot more rainfall up there. So we could be seeing rainfall totals over the next 5 days, probably approaching the 500 millimeter threshold in one or two locations. Yeah, 500 to 600 millimeters, a significant amount of rainfall expected, even though it is in a very remote section of Queensland. There will be one or two farms or cattle stations, I guess, that get affected by this vast quantity of rainfall that is expected to fall. So if you live in an area that is prone to flash flooding or riverine flooding, then it's a very good idea to prepare now by moving things into sheds or into higher ground. And if you do have property that is at serious risk of flooding, because this rainfall is very likely at this point, I would recommend sandbagging at this point, because a lot of rainfall, we could be looking at rainfall totals approaching half a year to a year's worth of rain for some of these locations, especially around Gregory and Burketown and across the Northern Territory Queensland border. Now, the Access model is once again really hyping up this system, calling for up to a metre of rainfall. That's the absolute upper echelon of the total of rainfall that we could be expecting from this tropical low as it moves north of Mount Isa. But again, probably not too much. It won't actually materialise to this extent, and we won't be seeing 1,100 millimetres of rainfall fall. I'd say a good number to bank on right now is probably between 200 to 400 millimetres for a lot of locations, and then about 500 to 550 in one or two places that receive more rainfall than most other places. And it's also a very easy forecast to make. As this cyclone moves north, anywhere around this system centre is likely to receive rainfall, and you're looking at a line between the Queensland Northern Territory border down towards Mount Isa and then inland towards Corumba, and probably around Croydon, I would say, is the absolute furthest east that this rainfall will impact. And you'll be looking at communities such as Gregory and Burketown that will be receiving the worst of the rainfall. And some of this rainfall might also extend down towards Cloncurry as well, but it looks like it's going to be staying over a very remote remote part of tropical Queensland. We're not expecting this to become a absolutely catastrophic town bulldozing sort of rainfall event. It's probably going to be a little bit more tamer from what we saw with Cyclone Jasper. Still though, a lot of rainfall can be expected. Now, I did say that we have this developing tropical cyclone thingy in the Coral Sea. That's actually the tropical low that delivered all of this rainfall and intense thunderstorm activity to Queensland. That's going to be the precursor tropical low to the tropical low that we could be seeing around Vanuatu or New Caledonia towards the end of next week. This is a low chance of formation right now. I'd say about 15% chance of this thing actually becoming a tropical cyclone in the Coral Sea. So there is no need to panic, but it is definitely a system that we should be not worrying about, watching very closely. And if you want the latest updates on the system, then do by subscribing to the channel, you'll get them probably daily at this point. But yeah, some pretty strong signals indicating that we could be seeing a weak tropical cyclone around New Caledonia, Vanuatu. And could it be an Australian impact? Well, we'll take a look at that right now. You can see initialized with a pressure of 1,000 millibars. It's looking a lot like an east coast low. Actually, I forgot to say that looking at the satellite imagery. It's very messy, very broad, and it's got just this low level sort of messy convection thunderstorm activity firing around the center of it. And on radar imagery, there's absolutely no rainfall approaching the Queensland coastline right now, and very limited thunderstorm activity. In fact, the majority of the thunderstorm activity is around Huendon and across towards Mount Isa as well. Very strong thunderstorm activity through parts of central Queensland. Actually, I did forget to mention that. Some very interesting signs there in terms of how much rainfall and lightning activity could be expected towards the end of today. So looking at this tropical low wrap itself up by around Thursday and into Friday, it's looking fairly broad and fairly messy. It's actually very similar to how Cyclone Kirrily developed, and she really does take her time. She doesn't become a tropical cyclone. Well, I should be saying he, because if this does get named into a tropical cyclone, it will pick up the name of Cyclone Lincoln, and it heads up north by around Thursday and Friday into the far north Coral Sea, approaching the latitude of around Cairns or Lockhart River, before it becomes what could be classified as a tropical cyclone at this point. But you're looking very long range at this point, and it's not a forecast that we could be backing on here. Still though, it could be a very gusty sort of period for parts of the Coral Sea, with some significant wave heights and also wind gusts approaching 90 kilometers an hour for a lot of locations, extending down towards Brisbane as well. But just looking at this picture here, very rare you see tropical cyclones develop that are this broad, so I wouldn't be putting my money on this forecast at this point. It's a very unlikely and also a very difficult forecast to make. There is a lot of uncertainty surrounding it. But yeah, a lot of it will also depend on a tropical low that's expected to develop across parts of the Marshall Islands, actually, or adjacent to the Solomon Islands and north of Fiji. By around next Tuesday and Wednesday, we could be seeing a tropical cyclone approach sort of Tonga and that sort of area. A very weak one and also a very messy one as well, but we might be seeing a tropical cyclone here. And the stronger that this cyclone gets, the more outflow we're probably going to be expecting towards the Coral Sea, and the more hostile the conditions are. So if we see a strong tropical cyclone through here around Tonga. I'm not sure what this nation's called through here, but we're looking at a lot of the island nations in the South Pacific here. If this one becomes quite strong, which it's unlikely to do, then we might be seeing this system here become a lot weaker or non-existent. And the GFS model is actually calling for that, where we see a little bit of a stronger system. Speaking of the GFS, let's take it right back and take a look at wind speeds for the GFS on this tropical low. It's actually got a designation, tropical low 06U. I forgot to mention that. But you can see as it moves towards New Caledonia and Vanuatu, it really struggles until about next Tuesday or Wednesday, when it looks like it gets a defined low-level center as it moves up towards PNG. And by around Friday, it looks like it might have its best shot at becoming a tropical low. But again, it really doesn't look that good. What this is telling me actually is, considering we've got very good model consensus right out to the 10-day period between the Eastern WBF and also the GFS and maybe the Access G3 as well, yeah, we've got very good model consensus between all three major models for the Australian region. That tells me that this tropical low is very likely to take this sort of track. However, we are very uncertain in terms of intensity at this point. It's a chance that this thing could go into a cyclone and become a category 2 or 3 strength severe tropical cyclone, but there's also a chance that this thing completely busts and just meanders around the Coral Sea as a tropical low. So it's one that we need to be watching, but it's certainly not one that we need to be panicking about. And to answer the question that I raised earlier about this being an Australian cyclone threat, I strongly doubt it. Even at this point, it doesn't look like it's going to threaten Australia in any way, shape or form, apart from maybe some gusty winds of the Whitsundays and Hamilton Island in the wake of the cleanup for Tropical Cyclone Kirrily. Now, for Vanuatu, this is probably going to be a different story. We might actually see a tropical cyclone impact Vanuatu or New Caledonia towards next Thursday or Friday and the end of next week. But again, a very uncertain picture to comment on, and it's a very difficult forecast to actually make. Now, I did also say, and this is for viewers that are interested in other systems across the Australian region, we've got a developing tropical low adjacent to Rodriguez as well, and I'll just take a quick minute to look at this before we take a look at some more Australian weather, but you can see it develops itself quite nicely throughout Wednesday and into Thursday, and actually becomes a tropical cyclone as it stalls around Rodriguez by around Saturday and into Sunday, becoming what looks to be a Category 2 strength Category 2 strength tropical cyclone, and approaching Category 3 strength severe tropical cyclone status as it moves deeper into the subtropics. So again, this might be a little bit of a powerful system adjacent to Rodriguez, but it is, once again, no impact to Australia. But because it moves south, and it's going to be a low-pressure system south of Western Australia, it might drag a low-pressure system or two down around Exmouth, and we could be seeing a west coast trough develop adjacent to Perth and Geraldton, which could drive temperatures up by around the end of next week, and that actually looks like what happens. I think by around Thursday and into Friday, Perth will be once again back into a bit of a hot spell. We'll be seeing daytime maxima approach 40 degrees Celsius for some areas. Actually, what is pissing me off right now is the fact that the media is screaming heat wave for Perth right now. Yeah, it's bloody hot. We're looking at 42-degree days right now. My weather station outside has picked up a maximum of 41.4 degrees Celsius today, and I live reasonably close to the coast as well. So I do feel for the hills communities, especially if you don't have a great air conditioning system. But it's not a heat wave. This is just summer for Perth, this is. And all of Western Australia, for that fact. Anything over 45 degrees Celsius or parts of southwest and Western Australia, I would class as a true-blown heat wave. And in the north, you're looking at temperatures above 50 degrees Celsius. This stuff happens every single year, and it's just a hot spell. And what is actually interesting as well is Marie in South Australia recorded, here's Marie down here. Yesterday, I read somewhere that a personal weather station picked up a preliminary reading of 61.4 degrees Celsius in the sun at surface level. Now, you would think that is a global heat record. I'm going to explain why that isn't. So, air temperature and ground temperature are two completely different things. Ground temperature is measured at the ground level, and when you've got a weather station close to the roads, you get the radiating heat off the road that affects the temperature reading. And that's why if you step on hot bricks or hot tarmac in the middle of summer in Australia, your feet absolutely fry up, and it's a very unpleasant experience, and I'm speaking from experience there. But air temperature is recorded at, I believe, 2 or 10 meters above ground level. Now, when you're recording temperature a little bit above ground, it's cooler air it is. It's elevated above the ground, so it's a much more pleasant sort of heat. Now, they recorded the temperature of 48 degrees Celsius, so blistering hot for Marie, but not 61 degrees Celsius, which is why it wasn't a heat record. But on that note, that's basically it for the Australian weather in this forecast update. I do hope you enjoyed it, and if you did, please show your support by leaving a like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. We're getting very close to 10,000 subscribers, and your support really does mean a lot to me. So thank you so much for watching. I promise I'll upload in the Force 13AU channel sometime this week as well. I've been flat out with holidays and errands and stuff and work as well. My life has gotten quite busy over the past week or so, but it is starting to calm down, so I will be uploading there a little bit more frequently as well, but expect daily uploads here. Anyway, that is all from me, and I'll catch you on the next storm. Goodbye.